Okay, today I'd like to depart from my usual training and nutrition videos to do a little commentary on the Arnold contest that just occurred in Columbus, Ohio. I want to do a little post-contest commentary. Again, I'm being redundant, repeating myself. Excuse me, but but full disclosure first. I don't want to mislead anyone. I wasn't there at the contest myself. I did cover this contest in the from the inception of the contest in 1989 all the way to the late 90s. I wrote for major bodybuilding magazines. Each year I went to often chilly Columbus, Ohio, and covered this contest. I got to know all the top competitors then. They all knew me, but that was in the past. I haven't been to the contest in years, but I do watch it when it's on the internet, and that's exactly what I did this time. So, I want to also point out that in case anybody that thinks this is wrong, I should point out that having covered this contest for 10 years, I sat in what they call the press section, which was just under the stage. And I can tell you, actually, I can testify that the view that I got from watching the Generation Iron live feed of the Arnold contest was about 15 times better than what I actually saw in person. Because, first of all, people would walk in front of me most of the time when I was watching the contest. Also, being under the stage, I had kind of a warped, almost like 45-degree view of the competitors, where some of them looked bigger than others. It was hard to explain, but it wasn't a true view. The only way I could see how they actually looked was to go backstage where I interviewed them. So, first of all, let me say kudos to Generation Iron, first for putting on this broadcast for free, which I think was pretty good. And second of all was the quality. I can't speak for others, but the quality that I got on my computer was absolutely perfect. It was HD TV. I mean, I could see pimples on these guys' shoulders. It was so clear. So I got a very good view. And the second thing I want to point out is, again, kudos to Generation Iron and they're not paying me to say this in case you're wondering. This is my own opinion. But I want to point out that it was a stroke of genius to use two former multi-Arnold champions, namely Flex Wheeler and Kai Green, to do the commentary. I don't know Kai Green very well, but Flex Wheeler is a good old friend of mine. And I thought they did an exceptional job because they were both very articulate. They came off as very friendly. They came off as humble. The great thing was they knew what the hell they were talking about. Half the time you watch these live feeds and they have schmucks as commentators that couldn't tell a bicep from a calf. I mean, their comments are so stupid that I wind up putting the speakers on mute because I don't want to hear their silliness. It's kind of the same thing I do when I watch boxing. The commentators are so stupid that I don't want to hear what they say. I know enough about boxing to know what's going on myself. So again, very impressed by Kai and Flex. They did a great job. Both came off as real intelligent. But now let's also, I want to add that, as you know, I'm sure there was several contests involved. They called it the Arnold Weekend. However, because of time constraints, I was only able to watch the finals of the men's pro bodybuilding contest. This is not out of disrespect to any of the competitors in any of the other events. I've seen some photos of them since the contest, and I think they all look fantastic. Whether they won or lost, I got to give them tremendous credit for getting in superlative condition. Very impressive. Congratulations to all of them. However, as I pointed out, I covered this contest in the 90s. The Arnold, in those days, they only had a women's show, a women's pro show, and they had a men's pro show. So I'm kind of used to talking about that. So I thought it would make sense for me to comment on the men's pro contest alone. I will have a couple of brief comments about the bikini contest, because the bikini contest, the finals were interspersed with the men's pro show. So I did get a chance to look at these women. I don't know any of them. They didn't even have bikini contests when I covered these contests. But again, I'll talk about that later. But let's get to the actual show. I've been accused of reading off the screen in past videos, but I'm going to make another admission. This time I am going to read off some notes that I took as I watched the contest, because there's no way I would remember all this. I don't know any of these guys in the like I say, when I used to go to cover the Arnold show, All the competitors knew me. I interviewed most of them, and I knew them. I've been out of the loop as far as attending contests for, it's going on like 15, 20 years. So these new guys don't know me from Adam, and I don't know them. So I have to rely on these notes. So you'll have to excuse me, I'm going to read. So I'm just going to give you impressions of what I saw, based on my many years of experience. I've written about hundreds of contests over the years. So, and the magazines. So I'm going to talk about the first guy that came on was a guy named Lionel Byaku, believe his name is. And here's what I saw. He had very thick pecs. He had gigantic wide shoulders. His arms were on the little weak side. This is a problem with guys with very big delts and wide shoulders. A lot of times their shoulders or their delts are so overpowering that they kind of make their arms look smaller than they really are. And this is a little problem he has. His calves are a little weak. It's probably a genetic problem, not much he could do about. He has a little bit of water retention. In other words, there was like a little water under the skin obscuring maximum definition. He also, you could see this most apparent, by the way, if you want to know the guys that having this little subcutaneous water retention, wait for them to do a back pose. Look at their hamstrings or leg bicep area. If you're having water retention, that area is going to look particularly smooth and it's going to lack definition. And that was the case for Mr. Byaku. The next guy was a guy named Luke Sandow. Sandow, not Sandow as in the Sandow. This is Sandow. He apparently won the United Kingdom Pro Championship. Very thick guy, huge calves. He doesn't have enough thigh definition, though. Needs to have a little bit more thigh definition. He, again, had some water retention. I've talked about what causes water retention in past contests. I'll give you a hint in one word without going into detail: drugs. But I'm not going to explain it here. He has a very good side chest pose. And I want to make a point about that. For some reason, when I covered these contests, I competed in the 70s, a side chest pose was a standard pose. Everybody had to have a good side chest pose. Mine, if I say so myself, was particularly good because I had a huge rib box from doing a lot of pullovers when I was a young kid. When I first started training, I did a lot. It gave me this gigantic rib box, and when I turned to the side, I do the side chest pose, and it looked immense. Arnold Schwarzenegger had a fantastic side chest pose. But today, for some reason, a lot of the competitors, I don't know what it is, they just seem to have a sunken in chest. They do, when they do turn to the side, they'll do like a tricep pose or something like that. They can't really stick their chests out. But this guy was an exception. He reminded me of the old guys. This guy Sandow, he had a great side chest pose, but he needs a little more leg biceps. This is a common flaw in a lot of the competitive bodybuilders. They develop pretty good quads, but they're a little bit weak on the hamstrings. And this shows up when they do a turn to the side for a side pose, and also, of course, in a rear shot. The next guy was a guy named Dallas McCarver. Dallas McCarver, I first saw at the Olympia. I think in my Olympia commentary, which is also put on the Generation Iron site, now on YouTube. I mentioned in my commentary for the Olympia how impressed I was with this guy McCarver, especially when I realized he was only 25 years old. I mean, this guy is a monster. He's huge. One of the biggest calves I've ever seen. His calves look like a cartoon, for crying out loud. And by the way, I don't look at the magazines anymore, but for those who do, if you ever see an article called How I Built My Calves by Dallas McCarver, skip to the next article because this guy's calves are, I can tell you right now, are 100% genetic. You don't get calves like that from training. Training helps, don't get me wrong, but there's no way you could develop calves that big unless you had a genetic predisposition. Now, this guy likes to call himself Big Country. I'm not sure why. I guess because he's a big guy. But anyway, he's got great thigh mass. It's a beautiful outside thigh sweep, nearly perfect thigh shape. He has immense calves, as I said, very wide back. His pecs are a little bit weak in proportion to his shoulders and arms. And he has this kind of like weird thing a couple of competitors have. They have this like a separation of their abs. The abs anatomically are called the rectus abdominis. And, most guys have very kind of close together, the cubes or the six-pack, whatever you call them. Some of these guys have a separation of the abdominals. Usually see that, believe it or not, that's what happens when women get pregnant, when the stomach, sticks out. The abs actually separate like that. Now, what's causing it in these men? It's either a genetic, just the way the muscle is, with their genetics, or It could be related to some sort of drug use. I don't know. Most likely it's just a genetic pattern that they were born with. Not much they could do about it. But the guy's abs are pretty good for a big man, so I don't want to put him down. Next guy is a guy who trains at the same gym as me, Will Harris, veteran competitor, has been around a long time. Will was always a big guy. He's showing his age a little bit, though. I don't know how old he is. He's got to be, looks like he's close to his, at least maybe 50 or so. I don't really know how old he is. But he has a little bit of the kind of pecs a little saggy. You know, that comes a lot from age. In fact, women with large breasts, when they get older, there's a ligament that holds up their breast called Cooper's ligament. And as they get aged, the Cooper's ligament starts to break down. So you'll find that women with naturally large breasts, their breasts sag more and more each year as they get past the age of 40. By the time they're like 65, their breasts are around the level of their waist. You know, there's some plastic surgery they can get to uplift it, but I'm not saying this is the case with Will Harris. It's just basically a loss of connective tissue that kind of, you know, in the chest that causes the pecs to be a little bit saggy. He doesn't have enough thigh cuts, really, you know, and again, he has the loose skin, which again is indicative that comes with age. There's not much you could do about that, you know, but it affects some guys more than others. Let me put it back. You can see it, especially when he turns to the back in the lower back area. There's a little bit of a sagginess there, a loose skin. And again, he's a little soft in the waist. Again, great bodybuilder, but really not really a standard for this competition. Next guy was a guy, Michael Lockett. Michael has ripped quads, very ripped, but not much. He doesn't have much mass. He has great leg. This guy has great leg biceps. He has great abs, good calves, small waist, tight lower back. But the one thing I thought was curious is right after his posing, he was kind of limping off the stage and holding the back of his leg. My guess is that he actually probably pulled something while he was posing. So I hope he's okay. But this guy shows some potential, you know. So I'm reading this off in the order of the way the appearance of these guys. Next guy was somebody named Vitali Vytskaya. This guy has nice thigh shape. His back needs a little more thickness. Now, thickness is very important in pro bodybuilding. Let me point out to you that several Mr. Olympia titles, which I witnessed, were won mainly on the strength of the back development of certain competitors. An example is 1991, Lee Haney versus Dorian Yates. Dorian Yates always had a great back, but Lee Haney had a fantastic back. And if you looked at it from the front that year, you couldn't tell who the winner was. It was so close. Haney won when they turned for the back pose. Haney's back overshadowed Dorian Yates. Haney won that show. Of course, Dorian Yates won several years after that in succession, largely on the strength of his tremendous back, and he had just gigantic calves, and you know the rest. Just look at pictures. Anyway, this guy, Vitali Vytskaya, he has, again, nice thigh shape. His back, as I said, needs thickness. His triceps, to me, were a little bit on the weak side in proportion to his biceps. He has a little bit of bloat in the abdomen. He has a little bit, not really the real sticking out pregnant look, but you could see it in the side poses, a little bit of a bloat in the abdomen. Be quiet, Chip. And he has, again, no hamstring, the lack of hamstring definition. Again, I write that off to, it's not body fat. I think it's water retention. Next guy named Juan Morel. Juan Morel has really nice delts, thick pecs. His calves are a little on the weak side, in my opinion. He needs more back definition. Again, and the guy needs more back. These guys have to understand you're not going to win the major shows like this unless you have that kind of Flex Wheeler, Kai Green, Phil Heath type back. That's what wins. And but his lats are wide. Back lacks a little thickness, but he does have wide lats. I'll give that to him. Next guy is a guy named, I'm probably killing this guy's name. I apologize in advance. Fouad Abiad. Never heard of him. You know, again, I haven't looked at a bodybuilding magazine in 3 years. You know, I don't want to editorialize on this, but frankly, this is my opinion only. The last time I looked at the bodybuilding magazines, there was simply nothing to read in them. Nothing to read. If you want to look at them for pictures, fine. The articles were just terrible, and the nutrition and science stuff was embarrassing. Let me just leave it at that. Anyway, Fouad had very wide shoulders. He needs more thigh-calf balance. In other words, his thighs overshadowed his calves, which is, of course, very common. If you don't have the natural calves, it's difficult to deal with that. He has very cut hamstrings, which is credit to him. His lower, a little bit of lower ab bloat. Not so much when he turned to the side, his lower abs were kind of like pooched out a little bit. He's a little bit weak in relation. His arms are a little bit out of proportion to his delts. He's got tremendous delts. Again, same situation. His delts overshadow his arms a bit. That's something that could be corrected down the line. So next guy is a guy who I have seen before. Never met the man, but I was very impressed with him when he appeared in the Olympia a couple of times. I forget what year, but Cedric McMillan I'm talking about. Cedric McMillan. He was a 2009 NPC champion. That's when he kind of made, came on the scene. That's how he got his pro card, I imagine. He was second last year in a pretty controversial contest. The thing about this guy, Cedric McMillan, that I noticed right off the bat was he seemed to be much bigger. And it turned out it wasn't my imagination. This guy gained 20 pounds, he claims, 20 pounds of muscle. That is incredible for a guy with that much muscle to put on 20 pounds of muscle. He claimed he supposedly weighed 281 pounds on stage, and just a couple of days before the show, he was 290 pounds. 290 pounds, that's mind-boggling to me. I mean, consider that Arnold Schwarzenegger, in his best condition at the Olympia, was 235 pounds. And when he won the last Olympia, he was only 226 pounds. And this guy's 280 pounds. No wonder Arnold was taking selfies of the guy. Arnold probably couldn't believe this guy's size himself. He's got huge quads. His calves are a little weak. Again, that's a genetic thing. I don't think he could do much about it. Nice upper body shape. Good poser. Great back, thick back. Good poser, unusual. This guy harkens back to the old days when I used to compete and when I reported on the contest. You had a lot of good poses back then. This guy reminds you of him. As soon as I took it, I'm going to make an admission now. As soon as I saw McMillan come out on stage and finish his posing routine, I wrote in the notes, "This guy's going to win." Honestly, did. I said I didn't even see the rest of the guys. I said unless there's somebody that's spectacular, this guy's going to win. That's the note I wrote here. Next guy was also a guy who impressed me. Never heard of him. Guy from New York named Maxx Charles. Wide shoulders, a little bit weak on the calves. Again, genetic. Not much you could do about it. Great. Oh, his quads were cut. Oh, man. His frontal thighs were sliced. Very impressed by his frontal thighs. Very cut pecs. I mean, he had striations all over his pecs. You don't see that much anymore. You just don't see that. This guy, again, harkens back to the past when a lot of guys had those striations. Yeah, he has nice arm size. He has good condition. I'd say this guy was the best conditioned guy in the entire contest. They used to give out an award years ago called Most Muscular that was given to the guy who had the greatest degree of muscular definition and balance. If they had a most muscular, this guy, Maxx Charles, would have won. Best conditioned body in the men's pro show. One little critique. He has a great physique. He needs to slow his posing down. He poses like, he's in a hurry. He has to get out of there. I don't know whether it's nerves or what else. Slow down the posing, man. You got a great body. Show it. That's the advice I'd give to him. Okay, right. Those are the competitors. That was my impressions of the competitors. Then they did the comparisons. In the comparisons, it was very, very clear. I mean, you didn't even have to know about bodybuilding to see that right away that McCarver and McMillan stood out among the rest. McMillan appeared a little bit harder and thicker than McCarver. And again, here I wrote right here in the notes, this is right after they were doing the comparisons, I wrote Cedric wins. I wrote it again right here, Cedric wins. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the actual winners in a second, but I want to comment because in between the individual posing of the pro competitors, they had a bikini finals. I don't normally pay attention to the bikini. Not that I don't love women, but I what can I say? I mean, they're all beautiful. They're gorgeous. These girls are absolutely gorgeous. But there's one thing I noticed. I know I'm going to get some flack over this, but I gotta say it. I looked at these girls carefully when they walked out, and the thing that stood out right away was every single competitor in the bikini contest had huge breast implants, and their tops, the bikini tops, were designed to push their breasts together to emphasize their breast size. but it made it even more obvious that they all had huge implants. I mean, these girls tend to be on the thin side. They're very lean. So these girls have little skinny arms and these kind of bazunga breasts sticking out that, you know, again, it's so obvious that there's nothing wrong with that. Listen, if a woman feels better with breast implants, I say more power to her. I just hope that these things don't cause any health problems like they did years ago. You know, but I mean, if it increases their self-esteem, I'm not trying to put them down. But here's my point. My point is this. Nobody says anything about the breast implants in every one of these bikini competitors. But I couldn't help thinking, I said, you know, if a male, like I mentioned, when I was talking about the male competitors, I mentioned how a lot of these guys had great thighs but weak calves, and I pointed out that it was probably a genetic problem. Not much they can do about it. There is, of course, a solution. A very easy solution is to get calf implants. Now, I've been attacked before because I've said this in previous videos in reference to Dennis Wolf. I was pointing out how Dennis Wolf has glaringly bad calves, but if he had calf implants, this guy in top shape could probably win the Mr. Olympia. I really believe that. And, you know, people said to me, well, you know, you're a scumbag. I mean, you know, they should develop real muscle. I mean, why? What's the point of putting in calf implants? Yeah, right. Now, here's my answer to you guys when you say that. Let's look at these bikini girls. Take away their breast implants, and what do you have? You know what you'd have? I'll tell you what you'd have. You'd have breasts that look like men's gynecomastia. They'd have nothing but nipples left for two reasons. First of them, a lot of them probably don't have large genetic breasts. The second thing is these women's body fat is so low that the breasts are largely composed of body fat. And when you lose a lot of body fat, I'm talking about women, they're going to lose a lot of breast size. So if you took away these women's breast implants, there'd be nothing there but nipples. And now I want you to picture in your mind these women strutting across the stage with flat chest, how much worse they'd look. So, you know, I think it's kind of hypocritical to not let men who can never really develop calves because of bad genetics, not to allow calf implant. If there was any chance of them developing naturally, I'd say forget the implants. It should be banned. But these poor guys, they're never going to get good calves. And, you know, it would kind of even the playing field. So I think this is my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I think that it's a little bit of a hypocrisy to totally permit breast implants in, let's say, bikini competitors and completely ban them in men's competitors. Just my opinion, kind of a little editorial here. The men's physique, I watched a little bit of it. You know, I got to tell you, I don't know whether I've said this in past videos. I know I've written this in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I actually wrote an article on the optimal scientific way to prepare for men's physique contests. In other words, how do you get in maximal cut shape, maintaining lean mass, but not get so big that you get the points off. I wrote an entire scientific approach to do that. It was in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. But I got to tell you, and I wrote this in my article, I'm old school. I admit it. I competed in the 70s. It kind of weirds me out to see these guys walking around wearing these what do they call, surfer shorts? You know, these long, we used to call them Bermuda shorts, that completely obscure their thigh development. I think this is like lunacy. You're supposed to be, I mean, if you're in any kind of bodybuilding, you're supposed to be judged on the whole body. How could they knock out the largest muscles in the body, the quadricep, the rectus, the frontal thighs, the rear thigh? You can't see them. I think it's absolutely absurd. Again, my own opinion, but it's hard for me to watch these guys. They're in tremendous condition. These guys have very low body fat. Kudos to them. They look great. Don't get me wrong. But I still think that they should, if they don't have to wear the little tiny bikinis that the pros do, but at least, you know, I realize that there's a physique division where the guys wear the kind of the old style posing trunks, but still, I can't see the point of having a bodybuilding contest where you're not judged on your thighs. My personal opinion. Again, you don't have to agree with me. What do I have here? Little comment on the Life Achievement Award. That was given to Betty Weeder, who, of course, is the 81-year-old widow of Joe Weeder. I met Betty Weeder a couple of times when I worked for Joe. She seems like a nice person. I don't really know her. I really can't comment on it too much. But in relation to this Life Achievement Award, I thought that was a little bit strange because I don't really think she really deserved a Life Achievement Award. I imagine that the Life Achievement Award is given for a contribution to bodybuilding. I don't think she was really a woman's bodybuilding pioneer, contrary to what Arnold said there at the contest. I think her biggest contribution was being married to Joe Weider and having all the Weider company put in her name, because every time Joe got sued, he lost. So the company was actually in Betty Weider's name, But I mean, she's a nice person. I mean, she's an older woman. I'm not mad about her getting life achievement. I just think that it would have deservedly been given to somebody that actually, contributed something to bodybuilding. But in defense of Betty, I think about a year or two, they gave it to Sylvester Stallone, who hasn't done a thing to promote bodybuilding. Nothing. So I guess this is kind of a buddy award. Arnold gives it to people that he likes, so really can't be taken seriously. Okay, after the prejudging, I wrote my placings, and hand in the air, hand on the Bible. This is the honest truth. I know people are going to accuse me of lying, but I swear to God, these are the placings I had. I think I wrote this out about 20 minutes before the finals placings were announced. Here's my final placings. First, McMillan. Second, McCarver. Third, Charles. Fourth, Lionel. Fifth, Juan. Sixth, Abiab. Guess what? That matched exactly the final placings. The final placings were, again, Cedric McMillan. He won $130,000. Dallas McCarver got second, got $75,000. Maxx Charles got third, got $50,000. Lionel Byaku got fourth with $30,000. Juan Morel got fifth with $15,000. Abiad got sixth, and I didn't hear what the prize money was. I also want to say one final thing about the contest is one other thing that impressed me was the great sportsmanship of Cedric McMillan. I mean, when Arnold was interviewing him, he actually called all the other guys on stage and said, this award was won by all of us. He put his arm around it. I was very impressed by that, because most of the guys, when they win, I mean, Heath and all these other, they don't do that. I mean, this guy genuinely seems to have deep respect for his competitors. And I love the banter he did with Arnold, where he grabbed the microphone and started interviewing Arnold, and even had Arnold do the famous Arnold twisting back shot. This guy's got a personality. I like this guy. I never met him, but I was very impressed by him. Okay, so that's my analysis of the Arnold show. And again, kudos to Generation Iron for this flawless video. It never cut out on me. I didn't lose the connection. It was crystal clear. And on another note, all of you who want the best information on training, on exercise science, diet, nutrition, supplementation, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, you name it, supplements, apply today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. The best information you'll find anywhere. You're looking at 54 years of practical experience and learning, academic knowledge, all in one. I will prevent you from making a lot of training mistakes. You will learn something in every issue. It's 40 to 50 pages. I got some fantastic stuff coming up that you won't see anywhere else. I absolutely guarantee you. This is one of the last bastions of truth related to health and fitness. Everything else is crap. All the stuff on the internet, most of it's junk. The magazines stink out loud these days. They're not even worth the print that's in the magazine. So apply today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter. And if you want a great friend, you heard him barking a little bit earlier. That's my dog, Chip. Go to a shelter, adopt a dog. Please don't get dogs from breeders. There's so many great dogs of all kinds in shelters that are just waiting to love you and give you all of their loyalty. There's nothing like them. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry I went a little long in this video, but hope you liked it. Take care.